The real turn of the millennium is only days away. So why then did all of us celebrate it on January 1st, the year 2000? Well, the confusion isn't new. News Center 4 science editor Brian Hackney explains that you have to reach far back in time to find out why.
You remember that little party a year ago?
This doesn't happen but once every 2,000 years or so.
Well, it's going to happen again. Because we made a little mistake about a few things based on the year 2000. Like those games in Australia?
The world will watch the first opening ceremonies of the new millennium.
Oh, no, they didn't. And the Rockefeller Center tree
is the first Rockefeller Center tree of the new millennium.
Oh, no, it wasn't. It's just the media making what you could call the mistake of the millennium.
What a great tradition, right?
All because of a single monk who lived 1,500 years ago.
Here's a new century.
A monk who didn't know anything about nothing. The story begins in Italy in the 6th century. The Pope at that time, St. John I, wanted to reset the clock using the birth of Christ as a benchmark. So he ordered a new chronology, a new calendar drawn up. He wanted to know what happened when under this new calendar. And he wanted the calendar to begin with the birth of Christ. And when he issued that order, he sealed our fate. The enormous job of refiguring the calendar went to a monk, the monk from whom all trouble flowed. He was Dionysius Exiguus, Latin for Dennis the Short. Dennis got down to work sometime in the 6th century, and he began counting the years from Rome's founding, figuring which years went with which events. He figured Christ was born on December 25th near the end of the year 753 AUB, or 753 years from the founding of Rome. 8 days after Christ's birth, January 1st, 754, feast day, the moment arrived. Dennis the Short had time begin again. It would no longer be the year 754. It would be the beginning of time in the modern calendar. So what year would he call the beginning of time? He should have called it January 1st in the year 0, but he didn't, and you couldn't blame him. Because in the 6th century in Europe, they didn't have a 0, and they wouldn't develop the concept of 0 for another 300 years. So Dennis did the only thing he knew how to do. He restarted the calendar clock on January 1st in the year 1. It was that inevitable decision that has led to all of the confusion through all of the centuries since. Think about it. Races don't begin at 1 minute. They begin with the clock set to 0. Babies aren't born at the age of 1. They begin brand new, really, the age of 0. They're not 1 until they're 1. But since Dennis the Short began the calendar at the year 1, all of the big milestones happen in years ending with a 1. By definition, a decade has 10 years. So when 1 decade after the calendar began, it was 11 AD, not 10. Ever since then, all new decades begin with years ending in 1. The most recent example, 1991. And since a century has 100 years, the first new century didn't begin until the year 101. So new centuries begin with years ending in 1. In exactly the same way, a millennium period being a 1,000-year period, the first new millennium didn't begin until the year 1001. And the second millennium doesn't begin until January 1st, 2001. All because Dennis the Short didn't know nothing in the 6th century. Now that we're at the outset of the real new millennium in our terribly sophisticated age,
Savor the moment.
it pays to remember just how much the media has learned since. In San Francisco, I'm science editor Brian Hackney, News Center 4.
Historians point out that people argued over the official start of the 20th century back in 1899. Of course, now that more people are living to be 100 years or longer, maybe our children or grandchildren can clear up all that confusion again at the next turn
It's
of the
remarkable
century.
how that Dennis, the short guy, looked like John up early in the morning. And yeah, it's a strange thing. All right.